So I watched one of your shows on the way here. It struck me that it's a bit like what I do. You're just going around the world meeting people.
I would argue that you put yourself in much more dangerous situations than I do, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, it felt like you were on this kind of international journey. Was it fun?
It was truly epic. I got to go to places that under any other given circumstance as a tourist I probably wouldn't find myself in the most amazing way, and was uncomfortable in a lot of ways that are also really exciting. So it was just like beyond epic.
It's about so much more than food, it struck me. I mean, I watched some of them, they didn't even talk about food for large portions.
Right.
It was just about building the idea of where a person's from and what family means and what community means.
I mean, I think that like with food, it was sort of like that's the seed that kind of starts the whole process. So we basically go with a dish that shaped the person that they remember from childhood, whether it was the smell or the taste or the special occasion or something that was prepared on a daily basis at the kitchen table, like after school. And we kind of take it through there and go to their country of origin and explore kind of what was going on at the time.
If someone was to take you on your show, where would you take them?
If they were to take me to I'm pretty sure I'm like 80% Polish. I know that I have, on my mother's side, I have strong roots in Warsaw for a few hundred years. That's what I was told. Both my grandfathers, Holocaust survivors as Catholics. My paternal grandmother fought in the Warsaw Uprising, smuggling children out of the Warsaw Ghetto. That's kind of all I know.
So what would you cook? What would, in the show, what would be the dish that represented?
Oh, the dish. I mean, there's so many. I think the one that I'm actually the most curious about is bigos, which is a hunter stew, and it's equal parts sauerkraut, cabbage, and it's offcuts and leftovers of meat.
Good memories often do involve food. And my grandmother, for me, she was Lebanese, and I used to come back to find her rolling vine leaves. And she'd also make little date cakes at Easter. So Catholic Lebanese make date cakes with they're called malmoul, date inside with pastry around it. And it's funny how we attach so many good memories to food and to community in that way. I think that's what your show has really latched onto.
And thank you for catching. Wait, well, what did she put in the vine leaves? Because now I'm obsessed with that. Was it rice? Was it meat?
Both, rice and meat.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
I
like boiling lamb, that would take a while.
People spend a lot more time in the kitchen in previous generations than we do now. When I turned 40, I had this realization of like, oh wow, like I've lived 40 years, like I've had a life. I start to think about like, what are the stories that I want to tell? What are the things that I want to pass on? The things that my father has been telling me since I was a little kid, the stories that I heard from my grandparents. I want to be able to have that like arsenal of material and that wealth of knowledge that I can pass on as well. It's like, it's legacy. I feel like we all want to have something that we can pass on to future generations.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm obviously fascinated by it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. You were very kind when you read my book. And I think that we're all interested in these things because we just fundamentally want to know where we came from and what it means to be in the world and build our own community. Do you know what I mean? Like, making sense of our place is just so important. I feel like the show that you just did does that. You're making sense of place as well as, your history and what things are important to you. And you have to find out what happened in the past to figure out where you're going, I feel like.
100%, and I think tying it into a little bit with your story about mental health, my paternal grandmother, my dad's mom, she, I mentioned that she fought in World War II. During the 60s and the early 70s, like she went through electroshock therapy. And that was something that no one in the family talked about.
Yeah. It's interesting, you talk about electroshock therapy. My dad also went through electroshock therapy. He did have schizophrenia. And I think we're better at talking about mental health, but when it comes to people who have significant mental illness, I don't think we're very good at all.
What we learned on the show is that like we also have these wonderful generational gifts, right? And especially with the people on the episodes, like we have these qualities in us or these parts of our personalities that are sort of like dictated by our ancestors. Like it's a beautiful thing because you kind of get to know yourself too.